At the time, social media was blamed for fueling the violence, but is now being used to track down the perpetrators. For more on this, we're joined now by my broadband editor, Vermeulen. Jan, good to have you tonight here on In Focus. So I believe the owners of social media platforms are cooperating with the police here. From Twitter, they're able to get email addresses, they're able to get cell phone numbers, and they're able to get home addresses as well. Looks like quite an in-depth operation. Tell us, how is this all made possible?
Yes, good evening. So first I'd like to acknowledge the journalists who worked on this story. This isn't ours. It's Abra Mashego and Mduduzi Nonyane from City Press who did the excellent reporting here. We just couldn't track them down tonight. But this is made possible because people volunteer this information when they open social media accounts. And even when you've opened, say, an anonymous social media account, so, you've got one social media account in your real name, and then you open perhaps another one on Twitter, especially, this is quite popular, that uses a pseudonym. Linking those two accounts can actually be quite easy for the platform operator itself. They can just see which devices are logged into the same account. A lot of folks run their accounts from the same smartphone even, and that's relatively easy to track down. And so with the help of a platform like Twitter, like Facebook, or like Instagram, it's pretty easy to link these accounts together and then provide the police with the information they need. Now, these platforms don't collect a whole lot of information about you. Often, they won't have a home address, but they will give the police enough, for example, a cell phone number with which they can then unearth the whole rest of your identity.
Yeah. The Jacob Zuma Foundation yesterday posting on its Twitter account saying it was concerned that the prosecution of Zuma is now being extended to his children, saying how could poor people without smartphones, data, and whatever else be on Twitter? They are illiterate in some instances. How can they be influenced? They're saying this is madness. So, I mean, if that would have been your plea in court to say, no, I don't have a smartphone. No, I don't have a Twitter account. I mean, is the court going to be able at least to prove you otherwise, to say, actually, you do have a Twitter account?
Yes, and the thing is, it's not just Twitter. Now the part of this that's incredibly difficult to show and to link identities to is WhatsApp, right? And so, yes, there might have been some folks involved in the riots who are illiterate, who might not have smartphones, but they might have family members who do have smartphones. They might have WhatsApp, even if they aren't on Twitter. And even if they can't read, WhatsApp is used a lot for voice notes. And so this could have very easily gone from Twitter to different social media platforms to WhatsApp, where it eventually gets translated into voice notes. So that's actually quite a weak defense. The majority of South Africans have some kind of device that can run WhatsApp, and I would wager that everybody, or close to everybody, who was involved in the looting in July has some kind of WhatsApp account.
Yeah.
If it's not everybody, then it's well north of 90%, because these riots broke out in urban centers. So if you're talking about deep rural South Africa, entirely different kettle of fish. This happened in and around and near Durban. And so to say that folks who live there don't have smartphones is not a great defense.
So, Jan, I mean, you want to say you want to build a strong case against these individuals because they are provocateurs. They might say, yeah, maybe I do have a smartphone, I do have a Twitter account, but I was only retweeting. Now, about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer than that, we were having a conversation because the laws were still quite weak at that time around retweeting and so on and so forth, and how, for example, if you tweet child pornography, you couldn't necessarily be arrested then. You can now. Have laws really progressed quite significantly to say even if you were just retweeting, you could still be held liable for what came out of your feed.
Yes, and we've seen people in political parties being brought to book for just liking certain posts, right? So there was a case with one DA official who had liked a post that got her in a lot of trouble, and usually it's been with respect to posts linked to racially charged language. And it usually lands up in front of either the Human Rights Commission or something similar. But a similar principle will apply here. If you are guilty of violating South Africa's freedom of speech provisions, or rather the restrictions on freedom of speech that we have in South Africa for liking or retweeting those kinds of posts, then the same will apply with liking and retweeting posts that incite, as is now contained in some of our cybercrimes laws.
Yeah, those cybercrimes laws, I mean, we know, for example, in the United States, the question of insurrection, and that case is still currently going on and so on and so forth. So this was our own South African kind of case where the modus operandi was mobilizing via social media. Do those crimes, I mean, considered cybercrimes, carry the same kind of weight as you would have done so maybe inciting violence in a rally?
Yes. So if you incite violence, what's going to be interesting here is these laws haven't been tested yet in court. They're pretty new. The president only signed the Cybercrimes Bill which is now the Cybercrimes Act, into law quite recently. And so, as far as I know, they haven't been used to prosecute anyone yet. So this is going to be a test of those new laws, provided that's the angle the NPA is taking. But yes, the punishments can be quite severe. I don't have them off the top of my head, but the punishments are pretty much the same as if you were inciting in the physical domain and not just the digital domain.
Jan Vermeulen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on and for joining us, helping us in this conversation there. Jan, he is the editor of My Broadband, bringing some clarity into how the hawks were able to work with social media platform owners to link, get the details, get addresses, and eventually have those 22 now alleged instigators behind bars.